Well, hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Great to be with you today. It's a beautiful Monday. Glad to start the week off together with you. I wasn't able to be with you Friday to continue in our story about this mom and this family storm that was going on because I myself had to deal with a little family issue as we had a death in our family. And so I had to attend a memorial service on Friday. So I was not able to be with you. Hope that you had a great weekend and are off to a good start today. I've been working in my office and getting things planned and prepared for the week for ministry things and such. But wanted to share just a little more time with you as we continue in our series on storms. We're looking at the family crisis. We're looking at this situation where a mom is completely overwhelmed because something is going on with her daughter. She realizes this storm is way bigger than anything possibly that she could deal with on her own. So she goes to the one who has the answers. We talked about in this passage where she came unto the Lord and she said unto him, O Lord, thou son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed, again, cruelly affected by a demon. Now, in today's culture, societally, and whatever the case, we don't hear about that kind of stuff. Really, it's almost become just movie stuff. Sometimes somebody trying to be funny or some nonsense about demons and devils and what have you. I just wrote a long post. If you follow anything that I do on Facebook and social media, I just wrote a long post about a thought that I have on my heart today. I just read a headline article, major news outlet, talking about the Grammy Awards that were last night. I've not watched that since music stopped being interesting, and that's just my own personal flavor, so I'm not trying to knock anybody's taste or whatever, but it just doesn't, the modern stuff doesn't appeal to me at all. But the reason this headline caught my attention was the performance of some young man who was dressed up like, supposedly like the devil, and it was a very concerning performance, I guess, from a spiritual point of view. And my point about it that even bothering me is there's far too many that take that stuff as a joke, when indeed hell's very real, and a lot of people are going to find that out one day. But that's a whole different message. In this story, this mom has got a glimpse into what that's like, because these demons have come and they're grievously vexed. They have cruelly affected her little girl. It is a realization on her part. I'm dealing with something that is far bigger than me. There's no way in the world that I can handle this on my own. This storm is not something that I can calm on my own. Therefore, I only have one option. One. I have to go to the one who can actually help. Oftentimes in life, we get diverted, we get distracted, we get turned off course by looking for answers. And again, not to be repetitive, but we look in all the wrong places, because the world has conditioned us to believe that everything has got to have 10 answers. The fact of the matter is, that's okay if you're hat shopping or jacket shopping or ice cream shopping. Everything can have a different color, a different flavor, whatever. Buying a car, buying a house, those things are absolutely fine in that setting. When it comes to spiritual answers, though, friends, there's only one. One. Jesus said very, very clearly, no one comes unto the Father but by me. That is a singular answer. This mom is in a terrible storm. The family crisis, the situation that was way beyond her ability. She's in this mess, mentally, physically, emotionally, all these different ways. She's just it's not good. But then you got to add even a little bit more to it, because societally, she wasn't supposed to be talking to Jesus, because, as is said in the scripture, she's a Gentile. In other words, a non-Jew. She's also a woman. It's a whole different concept about who could do what back then, or who was supposed to do what back then. We would see that in another illustration of the woman at the well, a Samaritan and a Jew, not supposed to talk to each other. The racial divide, the culture divide, all the different things, and yet still she was able to talk to Jesus, and her life was changed. We see through the words of this mother, "Oh Lord, oh Lord, have mercy on me. Help me. I'm in a time of desperation here." We can see through her words she was desperate. We also see through her words she believed. She had faith in who Jesus is. Not was, is. Because he never stops being who he is. And this family crisis she was in, is what drove her. Because then it wasn't about her. This had nothing to do with her. This was all about her little girl. Oftentimes we find ourselves kind of having that feeling, "Oh, I'm not worried about me." I've said that 1,000 times. It drives my wife crazy. I don't worry about me. But when we have children, when we have sons, daughters, grandchildren, whatever, when they come into the picture, everything changes. We're totally ready for action then. I'm ready to do whatever it takes, however it takes. Well, I want to get this in place because I want to get this taken care of. I want to be there for them. I want to help them solve this issue. It tells us in this passage that she cries out. She cries out. But she didn't get an answer. Jesus, it says, was quiet. He didn't answer her right away. This is another powerful surge of wind in this storm. You, me, those around us, we've all had those moments, if we're honest. We've all had those moments to where it seems that God is silent. And we wrestle with that. We struggle with that because we want an answer right now. I mean, it's like that commercial, where it's a money thing or whatever, but it's my money and I want it right now. That's the attitude that most of us have, because we're that's just kind of how we're wired. We want it our way. We want it right now. We don't want to wait. We're impatient, and we could just go on and on. In a crisis, that's even worse. In a storm, that's even worse, because the anxiety and all the things that are going on there, we want relief, or we want an answer right that very moment. She said, "Lord, thou son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil." There are times, and I think we all know this, but as we look through this illustration, as we look through this account, this story, and we place ourselves in this scenario, there are times in the midst of the storm, our faith gets tested. We just have to be real. That is not to say that our faith is not real. That is not to say that we stop believing because it didn't go our way or we didn't hear something right instantly. Not at all. But it causes a pause because we're still human. The family crisis may bring that to a higher level than anything else. Financial crisis, health crisis, all these different things can elicit all types of feelings. But man, we're talking about my little girl. my little boy, my little grandson, my little granddaughter, whatever. That's a whole different place. What was going on here? What was going on here? Here's the thing, friends. We live in a world of smoke and mirrors. We live in a world of total phony and fake, of so much stuff. Sometimes we don't even know what's real anymore. Something that looks real. I have people call my phone. You answer it. There's a person. There's a voice. But then the more you try to communicate, you realize it's actually not a real person. But it sounds like it. Oftentimes in this life, we tend to be pulled in all kinds of different ways. Here's the bottom line. God knows our heart. He knows the contents of our heart. He knows what's real and what's not. And he's never fooled by an artificial voice or an artificial, whatever. He knows what's real. This wasn't about mom being ignored. It's not about you being ignored. This is about God searching the contents of your heart. This is what was going on here. We see this time here. It could have absolutely been seen as faith under fire because, again, she's in what she would perceive, and certainly to her it was at that moment, a crisis, an absolute dilemma. Her daughter is in need, and in need right that minute. It wasn't coming up. It wasn't planned for or thinking about down the road. No, it was right that second. But not only was Jesus silent at that moment, then we add a little bit more. Okay, now the wind is not just blowing. Now the rain is starting, and it's pounding. It's not a sprinkle. It's not a drizzle. It's not a mist. It's hard, driving, stinging rain. Because those that were with Jesus, the disciples, those that were supposed to be representing him to the public, those that were following him, those that were supposed to be emulating him and showing him as they followed, they didn't want her there. In fact, we can see through their words, just tell her to go away. They were agitated. They didn't like her being there because they were mission-minded. They were so focused on what they were going to do. They, in essence, didn't have time for the need that was presented to them. This is a valuable lesson because Jesus was teaching them. This was a teaching moment for them and for her. This was to show her, ultimately, there is no need that God can't fix. There is no need that God won't hear. But it also shows these guys, the disciples, but it shows us today, the believer, make sure you always have time. I know we get busy. We all do. But when a need presents itself, that's when it needs to be taken care of. They didn't want her there. Her faith could absolutely be placed in a place of testing at that very moment because that's discouraging. Oftentimes, we find things in this life that causes us not just to pause, but to kind of back up and say, maybe I need to reevaluate this whole thing. Because here we can not only see faith tested, we could see a spirit discouraged if it were allowed. However, where our faith is what allows us to move forward, stay still, or start going in reverse. Her faith was so strong in the determination of, I'm going to get an answer one way or the other, because this need is so much more important than me. This need is so much more important than my feelings or whether I've been offended or any of that. No, this is so important. We can be bothered by those that seemingly have a stronger faith. in our moments of weakness. That's what was going on with the disciples. This lady's faith was so dominant and so strong, they weren't. No, they were so enamored with following Jesus and just getting to the next spot, to the next whatever, they didn't realize this is why we're here. This is where the church fails today. And I say this as a pastor. This is where the church fails today. We've become so mission-minded. Mission, not just sending those out, but projects and this and that, and we got this thing coming up and this event coming up, and we got to feed the homeless, and we got to do this, and we got on all these different things, and we get focused on that. Sometimes to the point we actually forget why we're here, and that is to share the gospel. And the gospel, the good news, if you will, is that God loves you. Jesus died for you so that you could spend eternity with him. Once we lose focus on that, once we leave that first love, as he talks about in the book of Revelation in the church of Ephesus, our effect becomes pretty minuscule. Because then our focus is on just the things rather than the one who brought us to the dance. The disciples were focused on moving forward. That was where we got to get there, man. We ain't got time. And I'm not trying to be proper English here. That's the conversational side of this style of teaching, is because that's what they were thinking. That's what they were saying. Their words here prove that we just don't have time for this. We've got to go. If we equate that to travel, we can see that. We can see how we can become so focused on the destination, we forget the fact that we got to have some gas in order to get there. Think about that for a minute. We can be so focused on what we're doing, we forget why we're even doing it. We get sidetracked. It's a very easy thing to do. And if we neglect that, much like in the literal travel, if we neglect the fact that we have to have fuel in order to get to the destination, that will ultimately equal walking. In other words, you won't have the ability to do what it is that you're trying to do because you won't have the proper things to do it with. They had a chance to be a blessing. They really did, but rather they saw her as an inconvenience. They said, send her away. Think about that. Send her away. But her need was right there. It was right in front of them. It was crying out. It was saying, Lord, help me. That's what her need was saying. Her only hope was Jesus. That's where her focus was. Not on the naysayers. Not on the negativity. That's a good lesson for us today in life. Because we are surrounded by negativity. We are surrounded by the naysayers. They're on every corner. They're on every channel. I've said it before, and again, not to be repetitive, but Chicken Little is everywhere screaming that the sky is falling. Maybe it's balloons today. I don't know. But all these different things that are going on, friends, and we lose our focus because of all the distractions. When we're in the midst of the storm, we're looking for an answer. When we're in the middle of the family crisis, we, just like this mom, desperately need an answer. She knew there was only one. There was only one that had the answer. Only one. But he was being quiet right this moment. And the group around him, they didn't seem to really care because they had something else they needed to do. But this storm, which had come into her life because of a family crisis, it kept her pushing forward. It kept her moving ahead, regardless of all the things that kept getting in the way, the obstacles, the torrential rain, the hard wind, the stinging on the skin, all the stuff that could come with this storm. She said, you know what? I'm going to not give up. I'm going to keep going. Her faith gave her the strength that she normally would never have. What keeps you going? What keeps you going in the storm? We're going to leave with that today. I want you to think about that. Do you keep going? Are you going? Or have you quit? Because if we don't quit, God won't quit. The opportunities will keep coming. The doors will keep opening. Even when one closes, another one will open. Even when something doesn't seem going the right way, keep going. It's like plugging your information into your GPS on your phone, your car, whatever the case. It seems like I'm on the wrong road. It seems like I'm not going the right way. Plug it back in there. It may say reroute. It may say go 1.5 miles ahead and take a left and then take a right, and it gets you back on the right road. That's what God is showing us today. Just because the storm has come, family crisis, financial crisis, health crisis, whatever's going on in your life, don't quit. There's going to be things that are going to try to make you stop. There's going to be things that are going to test your faith. There's going to be things that are going to test your patience and your wherewithal. What keeps us going? This mom was determined. I'm going to get there. She came and she worshiped and she said, Lord, help me. She didn't give up because her situation was that important to her. And she knew that if she gave up, her daughter was not going to get the help that she needed. Whatever your story is, whatever your crisis is, and in particular, if it's a family crisis, don't give up. Maybe it's wanting someone to come to know Christ. Maybe it's seeing someone healed or feeling better. I can't promise you that they're going to get that on this side of glory. I can't promise you that they're going to get better or not pass away or what. I would never make that proclamation. But I can assure you this, whatever the need is, God will meet you in it. But will you let him take you through it? That's the key. God bless you. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow as we'll continue this story about this mom, her family crisis, and her desperately seeking an answer and not willing to give up until she got there. God bless you. Take care.